All right, shall we start the webinar?
Okay. Yeah.
Yes, let's do that.
Are we good? Are we good to start? I'm so excited to get started, everybody. I can see you popping in. Welcome, everybody, to the E27 and Mixpanel event. We're going to be talking about finding product market fit with product analytics. I'm definitely excited because I'm here to learn just as much as you are. I'm the founder of Element XR. We are an AR metamaterials hardware company, but we also have a software side. So this, I'm so excited to learn all that we can from Rafael. He is the solutions consultant for the APAC at Mixpanel. So I know we're still coming in. More people and more attendings are coming in. So I would love for you to just drop some comments in. Where are you coming from? What country are you in? Maybe even if you're a founder, let me know. I want to know. I'm not the only founder on this call. And maybe if you're in business development, let us know what your role is at your company so that we can get a better understanding in who we are talking to. So we're just going to jump right in because if you do come in late, that's okay. You will be sent a recording so that you can view all of the material. Welcome, Leo. And so we're just going to go over some of the house rules to get started. We want you to join in this discussion. Anytime you have some thoughts, please type them in. We're going to also be opening the floor at the end. So we're going to try to give us 45 minutes to walk through, answer some of those questions. And then at the end, if you have a more specific question that you would want to get answers from Rafael, that would be the time to do so. So without any further ado, we're going to get started. Rafael, I would love for you to share a little bit more about your journey, because I do know that you have some entrepreneurial experience as well. So welcome.
Thanks, Casey. Thanks, Casey. So I think before we actually begin to talk about product analytics or about finding product market fit, just to share with you, I actually used to come from a background where I also do have my own startup, and it's around the e-commerce industry. So I definitely have the experience of going through finding the product market fit for my business. And it's actually a very unique journey which I've actually faced and I can relate to. So in a nutshell, what I've actually found out is that, for this business, I do realize in the market, there are a lot of different brands of peanut butters like Skippy, which I believe that you're very familiar of. And, I do realize that in the coming years, people tend to be starting to eat healthier and better. And, there also exists, peanut butters that are extremely healthy, which it's like no sugar, no salt. But at the same time, it's a little bit bland. So through my market research, I actually found out that there is a unique or a niche market where there's a huge demand for spreads or, peanut butters that has a good blend of, healthiness, but at the same time provides a very unique flavor so that people can still indulge, in the things they like to eat. So when I actually start off with this branded company, I actually do have a lot of huge traction due to its uniqueness. However, across the journey, what I do realize is that the orders start to dwindle in my business. And this is something where finding a product market fit or the journey of finding the product market fit actually begins. So through my experience and findings, I do realize that a lot of customers only purchase my spreads for only one time. And, despite having a very good acquisition strategy, the retention isn't as good as I expected. And, the frequency of purchases is actually really very low. So with that, what I actually needed was something called a feedback loop. And I really needed to hear from my customers on why aren't they coming back? Is it because my products aren't to their likings? And that is where, I actually thought of a way to incentivize customers to give feedback. So basically, I actually do reward my, customers for about 50 cents or $1, which is around 10% of the product price for every feedback they give. And this gives me a lot more information on, how I can better support this customer group. or at least find a better product market fit for my current market. And subsequently, because of this, I get the feedback and I manage to take action on it. The second problem I realized in my business model is that because it's a niche product, it's a homemade product, I do not have the economies of scale. And therefore, the price range of such spreads are a little bit higher than the typical market that you actually find. So in order not to really cut the price of my products, but still maintain the kind of quality and premium, I actually launched a new feature, which is called a loyalty system. And what I actually did is, instead of giving a direct discounts to products like this, I do offer customers cashback for up to 10 to 12% for every purchase. And this kind of cashback can be used in subsequent purchases. And this will indirectly help to encourage retention and repeated purchases in the future by using discounts you get on your purchase on the next one. And with that, I do see that through analysis, the frequency is decreasing. The price curve is a little bit more stable now, as the price range feels more comfortable for my customers, and that's how the journey of building a successful business model actually begin. So I hope that is a good sharing.
I really love how it's a little bit more than like the data. Right. It's also understanding the psychology of people as well. So this is really exciting.
Thank you, Casie. Thank you, Casie. So I think now this leads me to really talk about finding a product market fit, which is the key agenda for today. So I broken up into 4 key things, and I think it's very good to first introduce what Mixpanel is and what actually product analytics is, because people do get confused with the term analytics. After which, I'll talk a bit more about product market fit and how we can find product market fit with a tool like Mixpanel to give you the kind of insights you need. And I will show a live example on how we can actually achieve it. So now, without further ado, let me first begin by sharing that a lot of companies these days actually have a lot of data, mountains of data, but the funny thing is that they do not actually make good use of it. And through this development cycle of building the right product, or analyzing how your business is performing in the market, even sophisticated companies like Uber, Expedia, Skyscanner, Airbnb used to struggle with the same problem before they are able to find a kind of fit with their customers. So product analytics in general, it's something to really help you understand how your product caters to your current users and the people you're targeting to. And to take note, for all product managers, we are building these products very specifically for someone, and the best way to get feedback is actually directly from your users.
I have a really quick question, and I hope that other people have this question too. How, as an early stage startup, how do we develop and we measure this product market fit when we don't even have it yet?
That's a great question. I do wish myself I have the exact or best answer, but this isn't an easy question, and that is why there is so much challenge from this market. However, the good news is that there are a couple of approximations that can really help you guide your journey to find the product market fit. And this really brings me on to the next slide. So now, when we look at the product needs or the product market fit or what we are looking for, it's actually going through different stages, and it's never like straight away, I become very advanced, I know what I want to analyze. It's not always true. So whenever, as startups, we launch a new product, acquisition, no matter, will always be our first goal. Because without this influx or users coming in at the very start, it's hard to get feedback and even know what you're doing in the app. So at the very early stage, I will definitely say that finding a product market fit, what we need to do first is to attract the right users, to gain that volume of users so that you can get a bit more data within your product or your business. And that is where at the basic stage or at the start of product analysis, it's really about analyzing your usage, traffic, where your customers coming from, which channels drives the best user, when do my users log in. So this will be a very good start point for analysis at the very beginning. Now, let's say 3 months down the road, you get a good set of users, and that's where people start to purchase your products, use your product, and that is where we want to go a bit deeper in the journey. So if we look at it, after acquisition, what we want to analyze is really about the engagement and also your users' retention. And that is where we will start looking about the life cycle of our users, like after they get acquired, how many of them continue to stay, how many of them stay engaged, and how many of them actually left. So with that, a lot of questions or analysis revolve around like, when my customers drop off, why are they doing so? Which area in my platform are they actually dropping off? Other than that, when you see customers dropping off, you want to also understand how far do they stay within your product before they actually drop off to really give you the kind of insights that you need. And now, as you get a bit further down, and through this journey, you definitely would have a bit of monetary, I would say, business model to get a bit more cash, and that is where you want to really focus your analysis a bit deeper. As such as you might want to compare conversion rates between different users. How is it performing this year versus last year? And you will also want to improve the product. There'll be a lot of new features we're releasing. Like for my case, I released a new loyalty feature to help guide retention. And let's say you release that, you want to really measure, do such features really drive a positive impact in the KPI I want to measure? Apart from that, you might also run a bit of A/B testing, UX, UI differences to see how this affects your users over time. So in summary, I would say that this will be the 3 key stages that you would actually face in the journey in the startup phase. I hope that answers your question, Casie.
Yes, and we do have a question that is from Rihan. He asked, how viable is data collected from concept sales or test marketing for checking product market fit, considering that the users have not really or actually experienced it yet?
Gotcha. Makes perfect sense. And to be really honest, before I launched my business, I actually did a survey with regards to my product. So I think this survey would never be 100% accurate, but it does gives you a good idea on how customers actually see or view your product as to at least drive you in the first initial direction to build the right product. And that is why the product market fit, it's never the same as where you are at the start, as you are moving through in this journey. And it always changes because customers change, feedback change, and even events like COVID will also change your business model, and the product market fit will also evolve accordingly.
Nice.
Does that make sense?
That makes sense. Then we also have Leo asked a question on how long are the phases? Is it a finite period of time, or are there certain points when you would know that you need to go from basic to intermediate to advanced?
All right, gotcha. I would say it's more about the readiness of the teams to look at such insights, and this would really differ from business to business. So for example, let's say if you're running a fast-paced fashion e-commerce, definitely you get more users quicker, purchase of frequency will be much faster as compared to users purchasing furniture or even using a product like Airbnb. So I would say this would be really dependent on your business model. And usually when you're ready to move from a basic to intermediate stage, right, you will usually know it. You'll find that, all right, the data I'm getting is not enough. How can I actually bring my product to this to the next level? It's quite intuitive in some sense.
Good. It's like you don't know until you know.
That's right. All right. So I think this brings me to my next point. It's that, with such analysis, right, the question is, why do product teams still struggle, to prioritize what features, measure the impact? And when we actually did a survey from Mixpanel to a group of product teams, a lot of them aren't really confident in getting the kind of insights they want with regards to conversion, impact, retention, engagement. And there is a very good reason for this. So if we look at analytics, there are many subcategories of analytics, and there is something called marketing analytics, there is something called product analytics, and there is also something called business analytics. So all this can go hand in hand. And I believe that some of you might ask how Mixpanel is different or how product analytics is different from Google Analytics.
Yeah.
So Google Analytics belongs to the category where it's a marketing analytics. And this really focuses a lot on acquisition, knowing where your customers are coming from, traffic, how many purchases. But these are just numbers which doesn't really tell you the why and how. And once you acquire these users, right, this is where product analytics come to play. And this really tells you a lot more information like, why are my customers dropping off? Where are they dropping off? What's the first week retention? How long does it take my customers to be activated? And so on and so forth. So if we look at the funnel, marketing analytics and product analytics are actually very complementary with each other because we focus on the different stages of the customer's life cycle.
Got it. Oh, sorry, I have a little quick question.
Sure.
So we have like our marketing analytics. Okay, Google, I understand that. How is like Mixpanel a little different from like any other analytic platform? I'm a little confused.
Sure, that's a great question. All right, so the challenge we see, okay, or maybe let me take a step back. The reason why product analytics or tools like this exist is because there hasn't really been a tool that has been a good fit for the product teams. So if you look at marketing analytics, right, product teams aren't able to get the depth of answers and insights they need from like Google Analytics. And truth to be told, Google Analytics are a better fit for marketing teams. And navigating the platform isn't as straightforward as it is. And now, if we move on to something a bit more advanced like business analytics, and they use BI tools like Tableau, the problem about such tools, right, despite that ability to give you data in depth, this requires product teams to have technical knowledge, run SQL, and this isn't what product teams want. So they have to always rely on data analysts to pull all this data, and there's a huge gap between being empowered to get insights they want by themselves.
Okay.
That's right. So a tool like Mixpanel, right, bridges the gap between the ease of use and being able to pull out insights without the need of any technical knowledge and reliance on any team. So it's a product purely built for product teams to analyze their platform and their users.
No code, no code.
Yes. All right. So I know no code might be a very sexy thing to think of. Like, all right, is there a tool like that provides me with codeless analytics, or I need to install and start tracking for me? Well, the problem with such tools, right, Casie, even though it sounds really, really sexy, is that it lacks precision. It doesn't really give you the kind of data that you want. And in fact, sometimes it adds too much noise in terms of being able to derive insights, because every single thing they're tracking, it might not be the things you want to track, and it's also coming in. And that's one of the key problems.
Yeah, I can imagine like what I want to track for my product is totally different from what other people might want to be tracking.
Absolutely, that's correct. And then again, it brings me back to my previous point that I mentioned that, even though there are tools like BI tools, which is a really, really powerful, the problem is that it requires technical knowledge. And once a lot of PMs and different business teams once requests from data scientists, this is where you're not able to get insights as quick as possible. So now the next question I'd like to bring about is what makes getting answers to your product so difficult? And it's about having the right tool for the right team to make it as easy for you. So Mixpanel itself can be very useful for product teams, engineering team, design teams, growth teams, and even business analysts, because we make it so easy to actually collect all this information for you to slice and dice. And if we look at a couple of customers that actually use Mixpanel, and I believe that some of it would be a bit familiar, is that over the last decade, we can see a lot of startups like Uber, Skyscanner, DocuSign, they all went through the same phase as everyone is at now. But what you do realize now is that these brands actually has one of the best user experience and the best user retention in the market. So I think I'd like to talk a bit about Uber because, initially in the APAC market, or maybe at least in Singapore, there was a bit of competition like Uber and Grab. So, as we know, within Singapore, Uber pulled out, sold the shares to Grab, and this really hurt me quite badly. Not because Grab isn't a good product, but I am loyal to the product itself, and it's about user retention. They have better ease of use. It gets me to the point I want without too much information. So With product analytics, Uber is able to get to this stage through, I would say, an iterative model to really get feedback from the customers, improve, and that is why you always see a lot of ad updates very frequently, almost weekly, daily, to give you the best experience you can have as a user. So now, when we talk about product market fit, we want to first understand what is it and why does it matter? Because there is so much definition, and sometimes we do not know what product market fit really is. But before we actually move on, let's take a quick poll. The question will be, if we were to choose one of these following answers, and let's assume you only can choose one, which of the following do you think would give the best chance of product market fit? Poll time. All right, I believe you see a poll coming up at your screen, so feel free to select the answers. Let's wait for a minute before I end the poll, before I share the answer.
I can't vote. I can't wait to see what everybody else does.
Yes, I can't wait too. All right, let's give it 30 more seconds. Okay, let's see, we have answers coming in. Interesting. Let's see. All right, 20 more seconds to give your answers.
I think everybody's trying to be the, like cheating on the test by typing in the chat.
Don't use the chat. No changing of answers. All right, now
with all of you.
All right, okay, let's end the poll, and I would like to share the results. So I believe you can see on the screen in terms of the poll, and we can see that most of us is choosing, the answers an audience that cares, right?
Yeah, I want to know, why the best business model in the whole world wouldn't give you the best chance.
Great question. I can see that a couple of people have chose that. So now let me go through a couple of why, having the business model would not be the best. Right, just give me a second. All right, and the answer would be actually having an audience that cares. So why is it so? So if you have the best business model, in your own perspective, right, it's only looking good in your own eyes, but not necessarily how the market is viewing it in their perspective. And that is why, even though you have the best business model, but if no one is interested or even using a product, it's actually bound to failure. Secondly, if you say you have the best features, all right, let's assume, you have AI features where, let's say, you can immediately give customers what they want to buy, show customers what they want to see. However, at the point of time, even though such best features, right, and if you don't have a customer that actually cares, or audience that cares about the product, it also doesn't make sense. And that is why having an audience that cares would make the most sense. And I want to dive a little bit deeper, in terms of explaining why this is so. So, and this really also boils down to the definition of a product market fit. So a product market fit is, number one, identifying the key kind of features you will need to build for the audience that is most likely to care. And you would also need a business model required to entice the customer to buy a product. In the best world, we want all three of them. However, if let's say we have only one of them, let's take a look at why some fail and some will succeed. So let's say you have a very great team, the best people, the best talent in your company. However, if you do meet a very lousy market, the market wins. No one will use your product would fail very quickly. However, what's very surprising is that, let's say you have a very terrible team, at least you have a minimum viable product. But let's say at the same time, you have a market that actually cares, and just nice, your product is solving a huge problem or gap that the market actually wants. And with that, right, you would actually have a product that suits a market, and this would have a very first good product fit. Of course, this will change in the future, but at the start, this would be a very good match. However, if you do have both, a good team and a good market, this is where something magic happens. Huge success, Uber, Airbnb. These are very great examples. And trust me, I do remember a time when Airbnb, when it just launched, I thought it would be bound for failure because there are already so many hotels at low prices, cheap prices. However, Airbnb, when they actually launched it, right, they were actually following on a huge trend where there are budget flights, which used to not exist. So this means having budget flights is allowing, or opening travels to people who used to not be able to afford it to become affordable. And Airbnb right along the travel wave with a good market, with the right business model to actually make the business successful. And this is how, a good team with the good market will create something very special for your product. And a very quick example. So let's say if you want to address a market that really wants a product, and let's say, if dogs are eating dog food, like you can actually screw it almost anything out, the dog will still eat the food because that's what they actually want. However, let's say you're really good at execution, but the dogs do not want to eat the food at that point of time. They're not hungry. Whether is it beef, you're getting the best product, you're getting the best service, you pamper them. If they don't want it at that point of time, there is zero chance of winning. So finding product market fit, right, it's never like a straightforward path like we always imagine. Like it stays the same all the way end. No, it's always a huge iterative model, and it really takes a lot of challenge and time to really find that kind of fit that we want to have. And if we look at the top reasons why startups actually fail, the very first reason you'll see is actually there is no market need. That is why even having the best team, the best business model, without the right people to use your product, it's not going to work. And let me give you a very good example of a business or a startup actually failed. So they used to exist a brand which is called Anumo, and the business model was revolving around building a social networks for introverts. So extroverts themselves love to share so much, share to the whole world. And Anumo is more like a private diary where it allows introverts to type thoughts, share. So it might sound like a very good business model, but in fact, when it actually launched, the problem is that introverts themselves, right, just don't like to share and they would prefer to keep things to themselves. So in your own mind, having a business model might look good in that perspective, but to the target market that you're looking for, it doesn't really address needs. And that is why a business like that would actually fail.
Yeah, I think that's a good point to bring up this question from Rihan. He asks, how important is a pilot program with the MVP to customize the product and check for product market fit? And what is a good time to conduct it?
Right, great question. So in all good companies that I see, in the most straightforward, I think the gaming, they always have a pilot phase, or we call it beta phase, where it's only available to a small group of users. So a pilot phase is optional, but it does reduce any huge backlash or product or problems you might face in the product to a smaller group, so that let's say if app crashes, a lot of problems occur, at least you're restricting the kind of injury to a small group of users, so your team can actually act on it. And after which, once you feel you resolve these issues, this is where you can come up with an MVP to release live in the market. So I would say that there isn't really a definite time frame, because this would really depending on your team's, I would say, strategy on is the product MVP enough to be released to the market given that small kind of problems after the initial fix, or do you feel that we should make the MVP almost as perfect as possible before we release it to the market? There's no right or wrong, but what we need to do is first we need to have the right tool to really analyze what's going wrong. Right? So people are leaving, you need to know why. So if you look at finding product market fit, before product analytics actually exists, right, a lot of product managers is just focusing on intuition. Like we feel, all right, we have a good business model. We feel that this is what the market actually needs. So this is like, having a captain in a ship without a navigation system, without Google Maps. And, more often than not, you hit the iceberg, you crash or something, and you get lost. So as product and startup leaders, we always have limited visibility to what customer needs, the behaviors and the market trends. And that is why, having the combination of intuition, product analytics as your navigator, in most cases, you will definitely get to the point in terms of finding the right fit, because you do have that indirect feedback loop about what your users are doing and how they're reacting on your platform. And this really matters is because if you are able to stay at the center of this graph, you can make a product that people want, you can get profit at scale, you can keep them sustainable. Trust me, the business will be perfect. Now, before we actually move on into the next topic, we have a second poll, and let's see how you guys think, what is the best measurement for product market fit? All right, the poll should pop up in the screen, and let's see how this goes. All right, 30 more seconds before I end the poll. Right, 20 more seconds.
I'm excited.
Yeah.
Nobody's sharing their answers right now. This one's a little bit harder.
Don't worry, this is not an exam that you will face in school. It's all a learning experience. So there's all right, let's end the poll and share the results. So let me first give the answer before I explain why. So the answer will be number 4, engagement and retention, which most of the people is getting correct. And I want to explain why. So if we look at engagement and retention, right, or product market fit, right, it's never a one-time journey. And let's say you have 1 billion users coming in, but you have only 10% of your users staying. The question is, would you ask yourself, is it really a good fit for my users? As compared to, let's say you have 1,000 users coming in, it might be small, but you have 90% of your users continually to use your product.
Yeah, that makes sense. It reminds me of like Clubhouse.
Yes, Clubhouse. Yes.
Millions and millions of people, and are those millions and millions of people still on the app every single day?
Exactly.
Okay.
So I think this brings me to the point, it's why acquisition isn't the best measurement. So product market fit is not about acquisition, but rather more on retention and engagement in the long run. And like imagine if Uber has a best acquisition strategy, you use it, but if you only use it once, it's bound to fail. However, as compared to having a proper measurement framework on how users stay engaged and retain, will give you better insights in terms of fit, and you know that users are using your product for a reason. All right, okay. So here are a couple of myths about product market fit, and these are things I would really love the attendees to take note. So one of the myths people always say is that product market fit is always a discrete big bang event. It's not true. It's always very subtle, and when customers churn or when they fail, sometimes you don't really realize it. So it's never a one-time boom, something big, and you get a fit. Like acquisition, like Clubhouse, 1 billion of users, but do they stay? It's not really true. The big bang event for Clubhouse is celebrities joining in, and you having that special rights to join. But do you actually stay after that? That's a question mark. Number 2, some people say that when you have a product market fit, it's obvious. It's not necessarily true. There are times where you get a product market fit, right? The people in the market have not discovered your product yet. And this also would take time to really understand your users' engagement. And once you get them across, subsequently, right, you will see, I would say, or naturally or organically, your user base will be increasing at a very smooth trend, and your retention rate will also increase. So it's a very subtle process. It's never a one-time thing. And I'll explain why is the case in a couple of slides later. Number 3, some would say that once you achieve product market fit, you can't lose it. That's not necessarily true. And let me explain why. If you look at Airbnb, right, they had the best product market fit in the market until COVID hits.
Mm.
So once it actually hit, right, they actually lost it, but they were actually very quick to react. So what Airbnb actually did, right, is instead of focusing a lot on, hotel bookings, they changed their business model, or they add a sub-business model, which is called experiences. So this allows people, let's say anywhere in your country, to make a booking for an experience. For example, like tour, cooking classes, meeting classes, or having live sessions with different people to learn about the experience. So yes, they will definitely suffer a huge loss in terms of their main business model, but being able to adapt and quickly change to find a new product market fit to type that kind of wave would also be something you need to take note. And it's not something you will always keep forever.
Mm-hmm.
It always changes.
And so who's responsible for monitoring the product market fit? Like which team?
Great question. So if you look at it, right, it takes two hands to clap. It's never always a product manager's responsibility, because they do have visibility about the product. But then again, they still need a bit of direction from the leaders, marketing teams, business teams, because they do sometimes have a bit more insights about the real world, how customers are reacting to their campaigns, what's happening in reality. Because sometimes what happens in reality, but if customers are still using a product, it's still good. And a good case is like when COVID actually hit, right? Initially, we thought everyone would be affected by the business. Every business would be affected, drop in revenues. But there is one business that actually had a huge spike in product market fit, which is e-commerce. So businesses that focus 90% on retail, 10% on e-commerce, saw a shift in trend where a lot of people that shop in the retail world moved to the e-commerce. They built an app for that. They built a better experience for the customers, and this is where, it's a responsibility of different teams to have full insights on what's happening in the business. Does it make sense?
Yes.
All right, great. So now everyone would ask, so what does PMF look like, or what does product market fit look like? This is something that we can touch and view. So if you look at 2 stages, which is pre-product, as you mentioned about pilot, acquisition, and awareness, right? When people see it, they will get that initial excitement. So for example, when I was told that Uber launched, and I will be able to see how much I'll be paying in a long journey, I was like, wow, that's amazing, because I hate to pay for taxis not knowing how much I need to pay. Especially when you are as a tourist in a foreign country, you'll definitely be afraid to be, I would say, cheated by taxi drivers by a huge amount. And Uber just solves this problem. And what's also interesting is people are willing to queue for this pilot or beta access to actually join and use the product. Now, after you actually launched it, right, post-product, a good product market fit would see your users sticking around, which has good retention. And if you were to remove the product away, there'll be a huge disappointment. Let's say, imagine all flights now say, all right, now we will cut away all budget airlines and you will only be able to take the full-fledged, full-price airlines. I am very sure there will be a huge social interaction on social media, and there will be a big, huge hoo-ha about it. So this is what we mean by a product market fit. There's a huge demand for budget airlines. Next, you will see a lot of huge growth organically. The reason is because, right, a lot of such interest will be spread through the word of mouth. And once it does, that kind of spread, like, hey, I'm using this app, have you used it? Hey, I'm doing this, do you use it? That growth will come very naturally without you to spend too much on acquisition. And that is why acquisition is not the main thing you need to look at PMF. So, right, what I want to now talk about is how we can actually measure this. And this is something a lot of startups find it difficult to do. And product analytics might be something new to a lot of people right here. So one way we can do it is through survey. And the reason why surveys do help, because it's a very qualitative method, and this can be done through NPS scoring. And the same thing I did mention in my business, I did not know what customers feel about my product. I actually had to incentivize them to give them a chance to review my product. So it's a two-way thing. If you want something for the customer, you have to give something back. And once you get this feedback, this could be a very good starting point to actually change or listen to your customers to react to them. And the next thing we're going to look in terms of quantitative is about analyzing user retention. So if we look at this graph here, right, we can see product B in the green line and product A at the blue line. When we look at product B, right, you can see initially they do have a higher amount of users than product A because of good acquisition strategy. However, as time passes, we can see that the active users for product A stays constant at 50%, whereas product B actually drops. So, and that is why user retention is a very, very huge indicator if your product has a good fit in the market. So now, this brings me to something a bit more interesting to understand how can we find such fit in product analytics. So in this process, retention is about first activating your users and getting them to form a habit. So let me give you a very, very good example. Let's say, we have friends who hate to exercise, all right? And, they want to go on board the journey to, eat healthy, live a healthy lifestyle. So this requires a bit of change in their diet and also the exercise routine. So when they head to the gym and start to diet, the first 3-4 times of eating, healthy food, exercising is going to be very, very tough. But this is where we are getting them to be activated to perform that very first initial action they want to do. All right. 3 months later, once they get a habit in terms of eating the right food and exercising, let's say frequently, like 3 to 4 times a week or a month, this will become a habit, and this is what we call a habit zone. So this is really about understanding the frequency of usage on how much your users are consuming your product. And a very good example would be through this journey. So in this different stage, right, when users first sign up and join your product, the very first thing we need to do is to activate them to perform the key action they want to do. For Uber, will be book a ride. For Airbnb, will be to book a hotel. And I want to make sure they are being activated within a specific time frame. What time frame? This is where a tool like Mixpanel is going to give you such information. Now, after users book Uber or after users book a hotel or Airbnb, how can we get users to form a habit to always keep coming back to use your same product, not your competitors? And this is where we call it establishing the habit moment. And once they do it, this is where users can become engaged. And this is where we want to try to replicate this behavior across your different users so that we know that once they do it, there is a very good chance where it will build a strong retention or loyalty within your product. So what are some examples of habit movements? And let me give you a very good, I would say, example. So let's say for Slack, I do believe some of you business would use it. If you don't, you might be using Skype. So what Slack, saw from analysis, right, is that when a user, exchange at least one message with any of the colleague or team member, within 4 days out of the first 7 days, this user would have a very high chance of being retained. For Airbnb, it's very different. It's not going to be like any e-commerce. It's going to be much longer. So because of travel, for Airbnb, right, the definition of habit movement would be whenever a user makes at least 2 bookings in the first year, we know that in the subsequent year onwards, the users will always come back. So these are what I mean by examples of habit movements, and this is something you will need to find out. So now, without further ado, I would like to give you a very live example on how we can do that within Mixpanel itself. But before that, let me set a quick context, on what I'm going to show. So let's say we have a new company called Mixtube, and they are a subscription-based model that allows you to stream, videos, and they're trying to steal a little bit of market share from Netflix. And in their perspective, they actually do have a niche market, and they are providing movie selections not available on other platforms across different regions, languages, and even movies as old as in the 1950s or 1920s. Imagine being able to see Charlie Chaplin, comedies on this particular platform. It's a niche market, right? So now the question is, how can we find a product market fit within Mixpanel. So now, what you see now is a dashboard in Mixpanel, and we can see there are a couple of metrics that we do have here. For example, we can look at signups, which is acquisition across a trend period. We can look and understand where customers are coming from. Is it organic, Facebook, Instagram? And these are just very start in terms of finding a product market fit. But what's very important is to look at the retention. And I think for this particular company, they are still doing not too bad. And the reason is because when we are looking at the retention curve, we can see a slight smiling face here, which means that whenever users first come to the platform, after having that, habit movement being formed, we do see that over time, the retention is increasing slightly, as we move across the time period. So if you do have a good product market fit after that initial drop, we should at least see that curve staying constant or at least going up a little. So we do know that customers are staying there in the platform and there is a good fit for the audience you're actually targeting. Well, other kind of metrics you can look at to find a fit is the content or videos you're providing to your customers in terms of genre. Which genre relates most to your current customers? And when we talk about your customers, right, there is free and paid. So we want to focus more on your paid users because they are the one giving you the money to run your business. And last but not least, we do also have an activation funnel because we want to see that after users install the app, the initial excitement, how many of them actually got activated to play the very first video, which is what your business is about. Now, for now, let us first drill in a bit into the retention to understand a metric like this. So for this retention, I've said that for a starting point, I want to find how many users after they complete registration or start the trial, how many of them continuously came back to watch and play video. And we can see the retention curve right over here on the monthly period. And we can see I would say the base or constant habit movement, I would say stabilize around 11-20%. And as we go across, it increases to close to 20%, which is good. So this is a very good product market fit, but we want to actually analyze a bit further. And a lot of us might ask, all right, now we release a product, when it's time to go to the next stage. Now at this point, you might be thinking, how can I improve my product to potentially drive better retention? And let's say a month earlier, you were having discussions with a team that you wanted to build a new feature, and you say, all right, why not let's release a new feature whereby all our customers can download these movies offline into their app and web, so that in the airplanes or when in the gym or when they don't have internet access, they would be able to still watch these videos. So the first thing you want to first analyze, when customers or for customers who use this feature, is it getting them to retain or stay longer in the product or stay better engaged within the product, which is about finding a fit. So what we want to do is first break down by users, as we can see here. I won't go too much in terms of how we can use it, but what I've actually done is to create a cohort of users who actually downloaded the content offline, which is a new feature you released a month ago. Just as an example. So just give it a while to load. My internet's a little bit slow today. All right, let me do a quick refresh. Okay, just 1 second. Yeah, let's look at the 6-month period. All right, there's a little bit of dummy data here, but what you can actually see is that for customers who actually download the offline content in red, as you can see here, the retention rate is way more higher. It's dummy data, so you will see it's 100% as compared to users who are not using this feature. So when we are actually improving the product, getting or releasing something new to encourage users to retain. Like on my case, I said I released a loyalty program, right? I want to understand for users that onboarded this loyalty program, do they actually really retain better than my users who are not on the loyalty program, or is it otherwise? So if we do that, if we do realize with such tool that users do retain better with all these value-added features, we do know that all these things that you're creating, improving, is helping your customers to retain engage better, and they are finding more value in the product because it addresses a problem and a sub-challenge they are facing in your app. All right, so this is one way we can look at finding a product market fit. The second way we can do it is something really interesting, is looking at, I would say, the negative matrix or the reverse matrix. So what I mean by that, so imagine if you will go into Netflix, just for example, okay? And a lot of your paid users after subscribing are searching for videos they want to watch. However, they cannot find videos they are searching for on your platform. And because of that, all these paid users start to churn and leave your product. So this is a matrix in a way on understanding what could be a potential reason your users are not retaining. So one way we can do it is this. So I want to find all my users that actually, search, in my video platform. And I want to make sure the search results are false. It means they could not find anything. However, I want to specifically understand how this is affecting my, paid users. So we can say that, let's create a cohort. And I want to see all users where, subscription status or plan type is equals to a paid plan. And let's call this paid users. Now, with that being said, I want to break down to understand the kind of videos they are actually searching for. And they were not able to find it. Oh, sorry, let me just use this instead. So what this tells me, right, are the kind of videos that my paid users are searching, and the search results are false, which cannot be found. So I do see that in the last 3 days, there are a lot of series and a lot of content my users are finding but cannot be found. And this is one of the reasons, right? Users are dropping off, and people are actually canceling the subscription because they are not able to find new content they want to actually watch. And this is what we call finding or looking at reverse matrix that could also affect finding the product market fit. And that is why it brings me back to the same point, why product market fit is never something you can achieve at the start, and it will always stay constant throughout. It always changes. All right, so I hope that this is one of the interesting use cases you can actually look for, which we call finding the reverse matrix to find the kind of fit you're looking for. Last but not least, Mixpanel makes it very easy for you to find the aha moments. And what I mean by that is that, let's say, you want to find, with all the different features you have in the platform, you want to understand, how customers that have a strong retention in the 4-week have a correlation to the kind of features that you have, or at least the top events, or we call this the aha moments. Okay, and these aha moments, I actually, sorry, let me just change it again. I actually cluster to the key features I do have on my application. So what I want to do is I want to actually build a correlation model to really understand what behaviors actually drive my users to retain up to the 4th week. So let me just break down by the event name or feature name. And I can see that this gives me a correlational analysis to understand, when customers retain, what's the frequency or the habit movement they're actually forming. For example, let's look at play video, and let's go into further details here. We can see for play video, for customers to actually form a habit or to be retained up to the 4th week, they would have to first perform at least 2 video plays within a 13-day period. And this is what I was talking about, habit movements for Airbnb, Zoom, e-commerce industries. And this is one way we can use to find out at a very quick basis and try to find ways to push your other customers to have this behavior. And now, apart from the key goal of playing videos, you want to understand how sub-features are also affecting the kind of retention. And we can see that the download content, which you released recently in the last month, we can see that if users also download content offline at least twice within the 14 days, they would actually be retained for a longer run. So once you actually get this information and plot it out in your diary or anywhere, like, all right, it takes customers to be retained to do something X times within a specific time frame. The next step is to, how can we try to get the rest of my customers to replicate this behavior? One way we can do it is to, one, through a proper onboarding or tutorial you might want to have within your app in different stages. So as customers go through your app and they explore, let's say X days down the road, you might say, hey, did you know that you can actually download your videos offline to watch? Hey, did you know you can actually save these videos to watch it later? So we are trying to drive this kind of awareness to your users to push them to perform this kind of behaviors, because we do know from this analysis, there is a very good correlation whereby customers perform all these actions within your platform. There's a very good chance for them to be retained.
Very cool. Rafael, we are running short on time. So I want to get to the end because I know we have some goodies for everybody. And we have lots of questions here.
All right.
We only have about 4 minutes, so
sure.
I'll get to you and how quickly you need to go through these Q&As if you want to go through any of them.
Yes, I think for today's attendees' sake, I mean, the session is really for them. So let's straight head to the Q&A and let's take the questions.
Yeah, so I think we'll just go from the top right here.
Right.
How and is the specific data of what exactly is retaining and engaging the users collected? Does Mixpanel help collect this data? I think you kind of walked that through, but is there anything else you want to add to that?
All right, good question. So I think in Mixpanel first, right, you need to first plan the kind of user actions or events you want to track and send it across to Mixpanel. And everyone analyzes retention very differently, and this model in Mixpanel makes it very flexible. And you can always select any criteria. It could be users searching for a video, returning back to search. It could be users playing a video, coming back to search. It's really up to you to define.
Okay, great. Questions on platforms. So there's 2 of them.
Sure.
Do you integrate with HubSpot or is it a competitor? And what's the difference between Mixpanel and Heap?
Great question. So yes, we do integrate with HubSpot. So HubSpot acts as a CRM tool or a marketing engagement tool. So you definitely would want to at least do a one-time import of user profiles into Mixpanel, and subsequently Mixpanel can always collect along the way. And you can always send all the HubSpot marketing campaigns to Mixpanel to run end-to-end analysis. The next question you might ask, how are we different from Heap? So very initially I would say in my slides, I talk about codeless tracking, which Casie was really excited about. So Heap is a very good starting point if, let's say, you really have a very small team, you do not have any idea what you should track, and that is where Heap as a codeless tracking tool will be a very good starting point to really start tracking all those touch points you have in your website. However, where we are different is that Mixpanel is a very advanced tool. However, when I say advanced, I do not mean difficult to use. It's also as easy. So Mixpanel requires you a bit more effort in terms of defining what you need to track with something called a tracking plan. And once you have that, you send it to Mixpanel, right? I can guarantee you the kind of depth of analysis and the kind of features you can use within Mixpanel will be way more than Heap. There's something I can always go a bit deeper if you're interested. If you can actually send us a request to talk about this after this session.
Okay, there's the one more I would like you to answer here. Can it be assumed that marketing channels contribute towards product market fits, or any channel can be just focused on acquisition without product market fit as a focus?
All right, good question. Product market fit would require both marketing and the product itself. And if you look at Mixpanel, right, we actually have a lot of integrations with a lot of messaging tools and marketing tools. And this is for that very reason. Because acquisition, once you drive customers through, right, the marketing tools will only tell you that the customers convert. What Mixpanel will tell is how far did my customers go before they did not convert or convert. So you can very easily pinpoint. I'll just go a very quick run through. Is that, let's say, when you send a marketing email, which you can see all those messaging tools can be collected back to Mixpanel. I want to see how far later do my customers actually, check my plan page and actually subscribe. So marketing tools tell you, did my customers open the email? Did they actually pay? But what if I tell you the customers went as far as almost clicking that payment button and drop off at that point? So we are able to give you this such of insights that marketing tools can't give. And that is why we need to always have this two hand in hand.
Right. Okay. Just one last question. Are we going to be able to get the slides in addition to the recording?
I do believe maybe Yi-Ting could answer that in the chat box. I do believe the recording would be sent.
Okay.
The slides maybe we could try.
All right. Cool. We are over time right now, so I don't want to leave anybody staying any longer. However, I would love for you to share what we have with the freebies and goodies. I'm really excited.
All right, great. So I think Mixpanel, we ourselves really do support startups, and there are a lot of startups that are with us. Even Uber, when it used to be a startup, was onboarded Mixpanel. So if you would like, you can always head to mixpanel.com/startups, and Mixpanel will be able to give you 50K USD worth of Mixpanel credits for you. And if required, and you would like to go a bit in depth to understand, what product analytics is, what kind of metrics you can track, you can always head to this link for a free product analytics certification from Mixpanel to get a bit, a better understanding on what product analytics is.
Right, that's fantastic. Oh my God, I love free money in the form of products.
Well, Casie, you can always use it to your startup that you're actually building now. So why not?
Yeah, fantastic. Rafael, thank you so much, and to give a big thanks to the Mixpanel team for sharing. I definitely learned a lot, and I hope that everybody else on the call learned as much as I did and has some great takeaways. And Rafael, how can people reach out to you if they have any more questions?
All right, great question. I think the best way to reach out to me is through LinkedIn. I will believe that Yi-Ting could actually add my LinkedIn link URL, get me connected, throw me the questions, and I'm happy to answer them.
Great, fantastic. And if you just want to say hi to me too, you can add me on LinkedIn.
Yes, Casie, I mean, that'll be good too.
Yes. Again, thank you everybody for coming. Thank you to the E27 team for putting this together. It was a fantastic Wednesday afternoon of learning all about product marketing fit. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Casie. Thank you everyone for staying through this course.
Yeah. Ooh, I like the comments. They're so good. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Yay. Oh, it was so fun. This is way better than school, by the way. So great.